Tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Africa, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. America, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okello, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.
Thank you so much for joining us for another amazing episode of the African Father in America podcast. My name is Simon Javan Okello, and I am in Seattle, Washington. I'm going to be introducing our guest for today's episode in just a second here. I just want to take a moment to share with you what the proverb for today is quickly, and then I'm going to share with you what the three nuggets of wisdom that are related to this proverb are. And also I'll ask you to subscribe to my YouTube channel where we are broadcasting today. We're also broadcasting on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and also on TikTok. So thank you all for your continued support. I actually just want to bring on my guest now real quick, and then I'll take a deep dive into our entire conversation today. I'm really excited for the guest that we are hosting here today. Bethlehem, just go ahead and say hi to our viewers and our listeners.
Hello, salam everyone. How are you? Thank you for having me, Simon.
Of course. So for those who are meeting Bethlehem for the first time, she's an incredible leader. And Bethlehem is also, a community builder, an author, someone who is doing many things, a speaker, solution seeker, and positive thinker, entrepreneur as well, and someone who is a culture shifter and also always is advocating for healing in our communities. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about our proverb for today. And our proverb today takes us all the way to Senegal. And the proverb says that the truth is like gold. Keep it locked up and you will find it exactly as you first put it away. Truth is precious, and truth is like a gem, especially these days where we don't find truthful people, truthful governments, truthful leaders in many places. If you go online, our proverb yesterday was talking about how the truth went to the market, but it could not be sold. But people buy lies in cash. They don't even want to buy it in credit or anything like that. So this is a continuation of this theme about truth, and the value of it. So I want to share three nuggets of wisdom really quickly, and then I want to bring on our guest so that we can take a deep dive into our conversation today. We are joined by so many of you in Europe. I see Brian Bege joining us from Glasgow. I see M. Jewel joining us from Florida. And if you're watching, I want you to make sure you comment so that we know exactly where in the world you're joining us from. So, and also if you're just joining us, our proverb today from Senegal says that the truth is like gold. Keep it locked up and you will find it exactly as you first put it away. This is the first nugget of wisdom related to this proverb. And it says that the truth, the value of truth, the value of truth. What is the value of truth? This proverb highlights the immense value of truth, comparing it to gold, and just as gold is precious and worth protecting, the truth is something that we should cherish and safeguard. When you look at how even when you look at the war in Ukraine, we don't even know the truth, because what we consume in terms of news is propaganda. We consume propaganda from the West, we consume propaganda from the East, and we end up making our decision or supporting whoever wants us to support them. If you look back in Africa, we are in a dilemma all the time. We don't know who is the appropriate person to support. We have to dig deep in order for us to find our own path and make the right decision. The second nugget of wisdom is consistency is key. This proverb emphasizes that when you keep the truth locked up, you'll find it exactly as you left it. And it also underscores the importance of being consistent in our values and beliefs and not compromising our own principles. A lot of the time we know the truth, but the person we are trying to relay the truth to is probably not ready, and so it's better to keep quiet with the truth until the right time, and so this is the third nugget of wisdom: preserve the truth. You don't have to force people to understand the truth. You have to know that your job as the person who is a truth seeker, I think Bethlehem is a perfect fit for today's conversation. In a world where lies and deceit are all too common, it's essential to preserve the truth. By keeping the truth safe and secure, we can maintain our integrity and earn the trust of others and lead a very fulfilling life. These days, even the food that we eat, we don't know if it is what the packet says, So if you're not willing to go to the market or to go to the farm yourself and dig what you want and bring it to the table, you might be consuming something that is completely different from what you wanted. So I want to come to my guest now, and I want to ask you, Bethlehem, when you hear this proverb from Senegal, the truth is like gold, keep it locked up, and you will find it exactly as you first put it away. What is it that comes to your mind when you hear this proverb?
Well, first I want to say our foreparents are so wise. And the first thing I think about was, in most African cultures, we tend to have we're very silent about the things that matter, but then we talk about a lot of other things, and a lot of it is not based on a lot of it is based on opinion, not necessarily facts, not necessarily truth, right? So we interpret the truth, and then we go ahead and tell versions of it. But the truth, to your point, right? It doesn't have to get dressed up. It doesn't have to get pretty. The truth is the truth, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing I was thinking about is how much easier it would be for us to accept the truth that was put in, without all the dressing up, without all the fluff, right? How much easier is it to consume? And in relation to that, I'm always wondering, you said it, are we ready? Do we have the capacity to accept the truth, right? Because the truth, when you put it away, it's there. The truth is there. It is what it is. How are we receiving it? How are we processing it? Where are we at mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Where are we at to receiving this truth? It's kind of where my thought process goes. I told you our foreparents are very wise. So what they plant, it takes roots, and it teaches us so many things, not just what's at face value.
I love that. And unless you're willing to engage with what our foreparents, our ancestors were thinking, which for me, one of the fastest ways to do that is through these proverbs, and through conversations like the one that we are having now, is one of the ways that you can actually understand how did our ancestors think about truth, and how would they deal with the current wave of propaganda and lack of understanding what's going on, unless you're willing to go deeper, and the way that life has been set, especially here in the West, you find that you are always on the move. It's either you are at work or you're at home, or you're resting so that you can go back to work again the next day. Back in Africa, I came to the US in my mid-20s, but back in Africa, when you're walking from work, you have time, an hour, to have a conversation with someone, and that allows you to even have a glimpse of what the truth could be. Sometimes you meet somebody randomly and they start telling you, I know your great grandfather, and this is the kind of person that he was, and
Yeah.
those are not the kind of things you interact with here in the US.
Yeah, and yeah, I love what you were saying. The biggest thing for me, so I came here. I was pretty young when I came from Ethiopia, and the biggest contrast, especially as I'm getting older, now I'm a mom, and now I'm very conscious of making sure that my son understands his culture, his heritage. As I'm doing these things, I'm very conscious of the polarities in culture, right? Like, we're in a very individualistic culture here, and our upbringing, for those of us who are immersed in our culture from back home, it's very different. It's very communal, and to your point, you have an opportunity to discuss things. There's a thing called yetemona saat. It's an Amharic yetemona saat, which yetemona gizi, which is you have an opportunity to be in the moment with yourself. And why is this so important? As we're talking about, like, understanding truth, being receptive to it. Like, we have to be in alignment with ourselves. We have to be able to not process what we're getting from a very, I don't know, removed space. But the more we're honest with ourselves, the more we have time with ourselves. Like, to your what you were just saying, Simon, about you're walking and someone is telling you, oh, this is who your grandfather was. This is how your family heritage is. It gives you an opportunity to be still, be in the moment, um, and, like, fully receive that. And truth, like I said, truth is, right? It is what it is. But it needs a fertile soil to be able to grow in. It needs a fertile soil to be able to be planted in so it can take root. And I think the fertile soil, like, we can't get to it if we're always, to your point, on the go. If we don't have itamona gizi, or a moment of just be in our bodies, to just be present, to just be in the now. Yeah.
I love that. Itemona gizi.
Itamona gizi, exactly.
I love that. I love learning new words and new ways of saying something that that I need to be thinking about more. I do always need that. My daughters and I always say I need alone time. Itemona gizi.
Itamona gizi, exactly.
Yeah. So for those who are just joining me here for our conversation today here in the African Father in America podcast, I am privileged to be hosting Bethlehem Bekele, who is an amazing leader. And Bethlehem and I connected because I used to host the Africa Day celebration on Clubhouse, which is an audio app. And she was one of the people who are instigating the whole thing. It was a 24-hour celebration of Africa. And so she was one of the speakers and one of the organizers of the entire body of work that we are presenting to the world every May 25th. But now we are supporting each other in different ways, and I was like, one day I want to interview Bethlehem for my podcast. So Bethlehem, one of the questions I love asking guests here in the African Father in America podcast is a childhood story, something that when you look back currently as a mother, as a culture shifter, as a solution seeker, as a community builder that you are, and an author and a speaker, what is it that happened in your childhood, in your upbringing, that really keeps you driven? Share with us a story that whenever you wake up, like earlier on, before I show you are driving your son somewhere, what is it that keeps you driven, that makes you feel like, there is still hope and I can still make it?
Yeah, I knew this question was coming. And I purposely did not prepare for it because I wanted to be a very authentic answer. And as you're asking me this question now, it went straight to our past. So we lived. Like I said, I was young when we came here, but we lived in Asab. My parents used to work for the refinery back home, And Assab is now part of Eritrea. At that time, Eritrea and Ethiopia were still one. I may be aging myself a little bit here, so just ignore that part. Don't calculate it. But I remember we were a well-to-do family at that time. And then there was a regime change. And like most African nations, regime changes bring a lot of turmoil and there's a lot of upheaval, right? So we were abruptly removed from Asa, went to Addis, and we grew up there for a little bit before we came here. But during that time, it was starkly different because my parents had to restart. I remember, now that you're asking me and I'm thinking about this, I remember my parents hustling. My dad made things literally from his hands. Like, I think they're making it now and they're selling them all over the country. But he made a stove. He was a yielder. He did a lot of stuff with his hands. So yeah, he did an individual stove and then a double stove for women back home that they can use with electric. It was so out of its time at that time because a lot of the stuff that we do, especially as we are making coffee, we roast our own coffee, we have a full coffee ceremony. And as we're doing that, usually do it on charcoal. So my father's inventiveness, right? It did amazing. My mom, I remember, used to go to the countryside, buy stuff, bring it back to try to sell it. I didn't know all of this as my child brain, right? Like, I remember as an adult, I realized, especially as a mom now, you do what you have to do to make sure your kids are well. Like, they never complain. And that's another thing. As an adult now, I'm thinking about, especially as a trauma-informed person, and as I'm talking about healing, can you imagine, like, as a parent, losing everything, having to restart, and then they came here, and we having to restart again, learning a whole new language, learning how to parent in a new environment. I was talking about this in yesterday's live. My mom was so crucial in helping us adapt to this environment, giving us the space to do so. After she drilled like our Ethiopianness, like that was not an option. But I could say to you, and as I'm going through a transition of my own right now, this is actually a great question because it reminds me that by the grace of God and your willingness, there's nothing you cannot achieve. No, there's no task that's too heavy, especially when your why, your driving point, is to be able to provide for your children, to be able to be there and give them what they need, even if it's not always what they want, and understanding and teaching them the difference between that. That question is making me feel a sense of gratitude. Honestly, like, I'm giving myself a moment to just be present in that emotion. It was amazing to rethink about that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I ask this question because I also love sharing my own story about what drives me. And typically, I share my story of how my mother gave me a bicycle. When I was about 8, my mother gave me a bicycle and asked me to help her distribute milk and bread in our neighborhood, And that moment marked my entrepreneurial journey, because I learned that, with this bicycle, I can get to many places fast. I can drop milk to different shopkeepers and I can build relationships with them, And the stronger my relationship with them is, the more I will be able to sell to them. People are literally buying from me even if they didn't need it, because I was always on time, 5 a.m. was the drop off time. We had to wake up at 2 a.m., So that's why I do this morning show, because I'm used to waking up early in the morning, So those days inform who I am today and keeps me driven until this moment. And so that's why I love asking this question. But now I want to go into some of the work that you do, as an author, as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, and also an healing advocate. I want you to just speak about some of your recent initiatives, but also what is it that if you were to sit in your son's class today, what would you tell them that is your most, is the work that makes you most proud in this moment?
Yeah. Simon, high five for these questions. First of all, I just acknowledge you. These are very deep digging questions. So yeah, I am the founder of Kinet Wait. I started an organization. I've been doing this for a while, but many years ago, I used to teach dance. I performed Ethiopian cultural dance. I used to teach Ethiopian cultural dance to youth, and it helped. The focus was to help fortify their culture, help them connect to, and help them build identity. And music is a great way. Dance is a great way to do that. It connects people, in like most African nations. There are different cultures within Ethiopia. So I used to teach 7 different types of dances, and I used to perform all of those as well. So it started from there, and then as I morphed into the woman that I am today, my business kind of changed with me, and the focus and the purpose changed with me. And what I'm realizing now as I'm looking back, they were all aligned. They're just different phases of them, right? So right now I'm focusing on creating a culture of healing. And empowering people and creating a culture of healing for themselves within the environment. We have the ability to do that if we can understand the truth to what we were talking about. If we can understand, if we can have a perspective shift and learn to process the truth in a different way, right? A lot of the discussions that I do now, whether it is online or in person when I'm doing speaking engagements, I use storytelling to help people connect to and connect to and see things from a different perspective. What I just told you, the story that I just told you about my parents, I needed to be an adult and in this state of my mind to have a different perspective of what was happening. Because if I just left it, if I didn't go back and reprocess, adjust my perspective a little bit, try to see things, there's a lot of blaming that you do as a teenager because we don't understand the complexities, right? So that's kind of what I do now. How can we create a culture of healing, right? A lot of times, even though I'm a culture advocate, I'm like, get into there, honor it, respect it, make sure it comes to life, it continues. My son speaks Amharic, he reads Amharic, he's 3. Like, the culture is very important to me. But I'm also a firm believer that culture is alive. It changes, it adapts to the environment and the people, right? So you take the wisdom of our folks, our foreparents, and you see where we're at, check to see the alignment, and then create another culture, right? Continue to expand the culture. Culture is not stagnant. So that's a very big driving point for me. And then, so Kinet Veit, fun fact, Kinet Veit means house. Kinet means art. So movement art, Kinet is movement arts. And then Beit means house. Beit is also a suffix to my name. Bethlehem is house of bread in Hebrew, and house of God in Ge'ez. So Kinet Beit is house of healing. It's a house of healing. And this is where we do different modalities to get to a healing space. Recently, and that's the one you saw, recently I started doing mindfulness for moms, for expecting moms and mothers. And there's going to be one coming for couples because I've been asked, I've been put on the spot about what about the father? So I heard you, I'm working on it. I just want to be intentional in what I deliver. But the reason behind that, Simon, is as we're creating a culture of healing, again, as a mom, I'm very intentional about how I show up for my son. I did a lot of the work, a lot of the digging, a lot of the healing while I was still pregnant. So there was a lot of that I was doing. And so now when I show up for my son, I'm not showing up with my trauma as much as possible, right? Like I'm not bringing in a lot of the heaviness. And so I want to help parents do the same thing. How do we cultivate this culture of healing for our children? How do we make sure that the next generation is not needing to be like needing to unlearn, needing to like heal from. So if we can create that culture for them now and empowering the parents, I think will help us do that. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love how it's really your work. You've weaved your what makes you proud into your lifestyle, into what you do for other people as well. So I really love that. I want to talk about a couple of things. One is, both of us are Africans living here in the diaspora, raising our children here, and you're very passionate about infusing our culture into the lives of our children, even though we are very far away from home. And those who are watching us are also in the diaspora. Some are in Europe, like Brian. Some are also here in the US. Some are also back home. I want you to think about 3 tips that you can share with parents who are in the diaspora that are raising their children here. Because this seems to be something that you're very passionate about. But I also want to ask those who are watching, share with us your comment. What is it that Bethlehem has said or shared with us that has inspired you, that you want us to know about? Share in the comments on YouTube. And if you are watching on Facebook or any other platform, go to YouTube, find African Father in America podcast. And leave us with your comment. We want to see what you're thinking in regards to today's proverb, in regards to today's conversation, and also give this video a thumbs up, share this video. Those actions are some of the ways that you can support the growth of the African Father in America podcast. Subscribing, giving the video a thumbs up, and also sharing it and commenting. Those are important ways that you can help with the growth of this platform, especially on YouTube. I want to just give a shout out to M. Joel, who has been supporting this show consistently. Brian Bege, who is joining us from Glasgow. Thank you for supporting. And Cabs, who is also another amazing supporter of the show. Thank you all for joining us today. And also, I know that Stella is also watching. Thank you for also joining us. For those who are joining us on TikTok, thank you also for your continued support. My special guest is Bethlehem Bekele, who is an incredible leader, author, speaker, healing advocate, and also a culture shifter who has shared with us so many incredible nuggets and stories that relate to the work that she does, the way that she parents. And she's going to share with us 3 tips as we end our time together today. But for now, Bethlehem, you're doing great work, and I want to make sure our audience members can stay connected with you, and they can also support you. So share with us a place where we can go and support your work, and also how we can stay engaged with the work that you're doing, where we can find you. You do a lot of incredible Instagram lives, and that's one of the ways where whenever I'm like, okay, I need to find out what's up with Bethlehem, that's one of my first stops, So talk about that for a minute, and then wrap up with the 3 tips for parents here in the diaspora especially.
Thank you so much, Simon, really, for your kind words. I'm like taking it all in. So my website is kinetbet.com, KINETBET.com. That is kind of the hub for all of my social media handles, and some of the work that I've done in the past. But Instagram, yes, absolutely. I'm starting to do that again. And then Clubhouse as well. I'm starting to do some more activities on Clubhouse as well. Again, talking about shifting the culture and creating a culture of healing. I do a lot of that. And I have a few, like I said, mindfulness for moms, expecting moms, and moms already. I actually did my first sessions on International Women's Day yesterday, which was intentional. I was again, like after that, I was just in a state of gratitude. But we have some more. I have some more sessions coming up this month, and of course next month, and I'll be updating more, especially for couples. So yeah, that's where you can find me, on my website, and then my website has all my handles. I'm also starting to be more mindful about going back on TikTok as well. So I will kinasbate same name across all of them, or Bethlehem Bakala on Insta Bakala. I'm going to say it in Amharic, okay, Bethlehem Bakala. Okay. It's important about the culture. Sorry. I think, so the three things that I want to leave with is one, as to help our kids with adapting to their culture. One is be present. Be present is the biggest thing. What I mean by that is when you're present, you can observe, you can connect with our kids. The best way to teach our children anything is by modeling. So if we're modeling the behavior, the kindness, the love that our African culture usually feeds us, the togetherness, all of that cannot be done if we're not being present, observing, and then modeling, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing is be consistent. I only speak to my son in Amharic, only, since he was born. That was the decision I made beforehand, and that has really helped him learn the vocabulary in a different format. Now he's in school, and there's a lot of back and forth. But please, be consistent. It does not matter. And one example of that is I go to the school. I do go to school. I know I didn't answer your question earlier, but I go to school, and I speak to him in Amharic in front of his friends. I'm showing them. I have a book for him, an Amharic book in the classroom. I have an Ethiopian shirt that I gave them to hang in his class. He goes to a Montessori school. So I want him to see his culture outside of his home. And being in the DMV, it's a lot easier because we have it's a huge Ethiopian population here. So we go to Ethiopian restaurants. I have him read stuff on the wall. I don't want him to think this is mommy's language. Like, I don't want him to be limited by that. So being consistent is what I mean. You want to do this across the board. And three, make it fun. Make it fun. Like, who likes to be stringent? Like, nobody does, especially not kids. I know I don't as an adult. I can tell you, we learn a lot more when we're in a joyful state. So make it fun, be consistent, and be present. I think everything else will show up as itself.
I love that. I love the last one. Make it fun, because it we are raised, especially for me as a man, I was raised with a lot of seriousness. Laughing was not tolerated that much. When you laughed too much, people never took you seriously. But I realized, I realized how my kids enjoy learning through laughter. Sometimes we talk about inappropriate things, like we talk about farting, and they never forget lessons that come around that time, and so I agree with that completely, and I thank you, Bethlehem, for making the time. I would love to have you again on the show, and I just appreciate you for all the work that you do for our community, for your son. It's something that I am trying to do with my own kids, being consistent with speaking to them in Kiswahili. So I feel encouraged to continue trying. For those who are watching, thank you again for taking the time and joining us for today's show. I want to give a shout out to Kesiwa, who is joining us on YouTube. Kesiwa is in Antelope Valley in California, and has also been one of the most amazing supporters of the show, showing up consistently, sharing with us ideas, and ensuring that there is growth in this daily African Proverbs and the African Father in America podcast. So you can also be like Kesiwa. You can like this video, comment, share it, and also remember that before this show goes live, we shared this proverb, the proverb for the day. We share it across social media, so whether you are on LinkedIn, where we are also live today, Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, we always share what the proverb is. So you can also support by engaging with the content on all those other platforms. But I'm just really honored to continue hosting this show, and I can't wait for tomorrow's episode. If you are a listener who does not watch things like on YouTube, the show is also available across all podcasting platforms, whether it's Amazon Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Apple Podcast. You'll find the African Father in America podcast there. So, Bethlehem, closing remarks?
Yes. One, listen, I'm giving you a virtual hug, honestly, Simon. I really appreciate you continuing to help us be present and continue to remind us what it is like to be a parent outside of, implanted in a different culture, but continuing to honor our heritage. That's one of your superpowers. I really appreciate you. Really, I mean, I'm gonna get emotional because I I'm very open with my emotion. I'm very present, but that is an important thing. I think you're also a culture shifter. You're also an encourager. Outside of being a father, you're doing that. You're a big brother for all of us, and I appreciate you. I'm a Senkanalo. Okay, so thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much. I can't wait for us to do this again, and I can't wait for us to collaborate on Madaraka Festival as well.
I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. I'll keep you posted. By next week, we will start sharing some of the information publicly. So for now, we are still working quietly,
Wait and see is what he said.
Yeah. Okay, take care of yourself. Thank you so much. Okay, bye.
African Father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze,